What is it like to feel like we always have to buy something or do something to achieve this like other state of being?
I feel like consumerism is sometimes a form of avoidance.
Hello and welcome back to Tech Unfiltered. I'm your host, Ariel. Today, I have an amazing guest, and we're going to be talking about why what we see online as it pertains to our physical experience actually matters and carries weight. So we're going to be talking about that, and particularly how young people and sometimes young women feel these particular pressures, why we're here, and what to do about it. First, a little bit of background. The beauty tech market is projected to make almost $173 billion with a B by 2030. That is a good chunk of change. And the reason that we're here is because it's profitable. It's profitable for us to take time and think about our bodies as they're showing up online. And so, as we're talking about social media and the ways that we show up on social media, it's important to include this in the conversation. So, let's bring it back to the OG quote unquote beauty filter. And I'm going to say beauty filter from now on because that's the way that we've come to know it and come to talk about it. But I have serious questions of whether or not that's actually beauty. I'm going to call it a beauty filter, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I think these are the features that make someone more beautiful. Bringing it back to the OG beauty filter, Snapchat. I remember when I first got Snapchat and you could open your mouth and a little rainbow would come out, was one of the first filters, and my gosh, we loved it. And for good reason. It was fun. It was something really new. We've never seen our faces like that before. So when that first filter came out, people were really interested. However, really quickly, those filters started to augment people's physical depiction. Things like larger eyes, bigger lips, a more angular jawline, whiter teeth, and a slimmer face were all achieved via these filters. And even now in 2025, there are a lot of filters that do the same thing. Some users opt to have filters that smooth and even skin tones, and these filters can also colorize and change the perception of a particular depiction of what's on the screen. So a recent study that looked into the impact on some of these filters found that when these expectations are not met, the comparison leads to stress, appearance dissatisfaction, sensitivity to feedback, and judgments, both of yourself and other people. Right? When we're spending time putting filters on ourselves and looking at other people that have filters, it makes it a lot harder when we're in real life and looking at real people and real people's physical appearance. I'd wager a lot of the content that we see online is filtered without even knowing it. Now, this is not just about our face, it's also about our bodies too. There's a quote-unquote skinny filter on TikTok, and researchers have found at the City University of London that there are adverse effects on having these filters, not only on our faces, but on our bodies too. It makes it harder for us to differentiate between real and fake and can lead to judgments of ourselves and each other. This study explored the adverse effects of filters. In a sample of 175 participants with an average age of only 20 years old, 90% of the young women reported using filters or editing their photos. 90%. When we talk about this, particularly for young women, it's really difficult to not feel charged by it, right? I grew up online seeing these filters and thinking that I should look the way that I do in a filter. It's just not the case. And as we think about the future that we want for our young women, particularly online, this is something that's on the top of my mind. Because at the root of it is when we start using technology to alter the way that we look, it makes us feel like the way that we do look isn't good enough. And that feeling can then compound onto our peers and the people around us. And you can say, Ariel, what are you talking about? Photoshop has been around for ages. People on the covers of magazines have been photoshopped for a very long time. And you'd be correct, and that's a problem in and of itself. But when that problem compounds into the way that we all experience a digital ecosystem, it becomes a stressor. It becomes something that feels difficult to escape. When you're just looking at people on a magazine cover, you likely know that it's photoshopped. But when you're seeing your friends or someone on your For You page, you don't always know what's real and what's fake. And it can really change the way that we feel about ourselves and each other. As our digital personas start to blend with projections of who we are in the real world, it's more and more important to show up authentically. I'm going to talk about this and a bunch more in my conversation with Wafa Shafiq. Here it is. Hello everyone. I'm here with Wafa Shafiq. We're going to talk today all about technology, young people, and why being online can feel really difficult. Wafa, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I am wafa, and I'm a product marketer by career, but I have been on a break recently to try out what it feels like to reset a little bit, to travel, to learn more about myself when I'm not in like a corporate environment and like in a go 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 environment. So I've been making some content, and it's been about your mid 20s. It's been about slow living, and about some like social and physical experiments that I run on myself while I'm on a break. It's so nice to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. So, just jumping right in, you talk about like being in your 20s, kind of like slow living. What
Yeah.
does that mean to do slow living in a digital world?
I feel like in a digital world, we get so much input about how we should be living. The
Mhm.
moment you like open your phone or like open up social media, under the guise, I guess, of inspiration, there are so many different lives that you see that are like visually aesthetic, but they're also like really uber productive, and the people are looking good, and it feels like they're feeling really good. And I feel like that requires a lot of curation, and when we're consuming that content, it feels like it's within our reach. And then once you actually, I think, start to live that life and realize how quickly you have to make trade-offs between being like a very productive person and, let's say, like your health. I feel like you start to realize that fast living is not sustainable. It's not sustainable forever. Like, I think there's seasons, I think there's times where you can be more and less productive. But that slow living for me, it means that I do the things that make me happy. I do the things like, obviously, I'm not planning on being on a break. Like, freelancing and stuff is cool, but I am going to go back to work, and I'm going to have that like more structured 9 to 5 life. But outside of that, like, and I continue to right now have like moments of peace, moments of rest without feeling like I have to get a lot done today in order to earn this. Um, I remember when I like first started to understand like emotional regulation, I was so caught up in intellectualizing, and I didn't realize that like living it out actually meant slowing down. So the slow living is like having a slow morning, not getting on my phone, having like a very peaceful nighttime routine, taking breaks during the day to just do nothing, like not be productive, just let my body exist and feel safe in slowness. And that's in resistance, I guess, a little bit to the constant input that I get of what I should be doing.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like taking the time to kind of like slow down is in and of itself resistance to kind of like the hectic digital world that we are in.
Yeah.
You mentioned, right, like watching other people like feeling good and looking good. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, which is like this pressure that I know I feel sometimes, which is, I look at other people's lives on Instagram. I'm like, wow, like they're feeling amazing, they're looking amazing. And I'm sure that people look at mine too and can think the same, thing. And we both know, right? Like there's always a story behind a post, there's always like, like I posted this and like, yeah, I'm like smiling with my friends, but like that day I was feeling really down. Talk
Yeah.
to me about that, like watching other people feeling good, looking good online.
This has been talked about a bunch, but it's like the whole like everybody's feed is like a highlights reel
Mhm.
is uh definitely true. And I feel like there are a lot of creators that have started to talk about like things that they struggle with and like their failures and that sort of thing, which is why I feel like it's unrealistic to cut social media out of your life completely, right? But it's so important to understand what kind of people you're following, to have a balance between like more realistic creators and more aspirational creators, I think, is really important. Because once you fall down the hole of like just following aspirational creators, I used to follow like a lot of like productivity people, and it feels like the goalpost is constantly moving, right? Like you
Mhm.
will feel like you are not doing enough. And which is also why I think off like on a tangent a little bit, but that's why I think comfort creators are becoming so big now, because we want a break from like constantly feeling like we are not enough in the digital world. There is still a lot of that like aspirational content and what you can do more of. And I think it's a lot of pressure. Like I know I felt a lot of
Mhm.
pressure through. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm totally with you, right? Like that pressure, like you mentioned like productivity creators.
Yeah.
And those are the videos that I feel like set me off. Or like today I woke up at 5 in the morning. Like I don't know if you saw that viral video of someone who's like, I wake up at 3 in the morning and then I do this and then I do that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
3 in the morning, I am still asleep. Like,
Yeah,
that's not my MO at all.
exactly, like the 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5 and, like, all
Yep. I think what you just hit on is huge, right? That, like, for me, one of the things that I feel is really frustrating is, like, there's always something I have to buy in order to be better,
yeah,
and I think that dynamic online is really harmful, especially for young people, particularly, like, for young women, like, that you
yeah,
have to consistently be buying something to be better rather than, like, things that will actually help you be better, right? Like,
yeah.
focusing on, your mental health and your community, stuff like that. Talk to me about, like, the buying. In my mind, I'm thinking about, like, beauty products or, like, beauty, quote, unquote, "products." Like, what is it like to feel like we always have to buy something or do something to achieve this, like, other state of being?
I feel like consumerism is sometimes a form of avoidance. Like, I feel like
Mm,
when I had a lot more disposable income, right? Like the moment I would feel bad or like the moment I would feel down, I'd be like, what can I do with the resources that I have to feel better? Which was usually money, right? So I would like
mm,
buy something to get like a nice little shot of dopamine, right? So I'd like buy some new makeup, I'd buy new clothes, I'd decide that I wanted to completely revamp my identity and my fashion sense. Like that was really big for me. Or I'd like decide to like through food. So like I'm gonna go eat out. I'm gonna get something that I really like. And it was all like, oh, I'm gonna get a sweet treat because like I deserve it,
mhm,
right? Which I think everybody deserves. Okay. But the problem was that it was coming from a place of like, I don't feel good. What can I buy to make myself feel better? And that's actually how I got into like the dopamine stuff as well, because I realized like once I didn't have as much disposable income, I was like budgeting and stuff, like if
mm,
I'm doing more mindful spending, I can no longer reach for that consumerism as a regulation tool. I think when I no longer had as much freedom in buying things, I had to address more of the core problems. Like, what am I actually feeling right now? How am I going to resolve this? How am I going to reframe my thinking without reaching for something to buy? Does that make sense?
right. Yeah, 100%. And, like, for me, part of it is, like, being online makes that worse in my life, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, knowing, like, I actually don't need this thing. I like, one of my favorite, like, content creation series, like, across the internet is, like, de-influencing you from, like, things that you definitely don't need in your home. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I'm, like, getting into cooking, it's like a hand chopper. It's like, "No, I have a knife and a cutting board." Like, I don't need another thing.
Mhm.
You mentioned, like, stuff around, like, dopamine, and you do these, like, dopamine detoxes on your personal page. Talk to me about that. What is that?
Yeah. It initially started off as like I wanted to do like a dopamine reset, right? Because I felt like, especially when life would get really busy, like I would have like really great days and then I'd have a bit of like a lull. Like I would feel like the next day was like not as great. And I would spend that like not that great day trying to buy things on my phone, like really restless. And I was trying to understand where this restless feeling was coming from. And so I was like, okay, let me first try to like do like a social media detox, okay, and see how that feels. But then I like started to realize that I was like itching to still get on it. Like it was hard to do a detox, right? Like I feel like it's muscle memory sometimes when I delete a social media app off of my phone, like my fingers will still go looking for it. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like
Mm,
this level of dependence I don't want. The point for me was I can't feel better off of willpower. Like I can't
mm,
break out of like a dopamine loop that I'm in by just telling myself that I don't want a fast source of dopamine. Does that make sense? Like I
yeah.
had to replace it with something else. And I decided like if I do a dopamine detox to cut out like all fast sources of dopamine in my life, what is that going to feel like? But
Mhm,
so that I don't like die doing that, like what sustainable sources of dopamine can I reintroduce into my life? Which is why I also do like the media I consume instead of doom scrolling, because I need to have replaced it with something else and I need to do it slowly. Otherwise, I feel like I'm in a dopamine deficit.
The last thing I'd love, like, maybe you can just share, like, a quick hot take about it. I'm interested in exploring, like, the digital, like, quote, unquote, "beauty industry." We talked about, like, selling things, but one of the things that's, like, really concerning me is, like, face filters and, like, body filters and, like, what that kind of does to our well-being on and offline, and I'm wondering if you just have a quick thought about that.
I don't think it's a hot take, but I think filters and the way we're approaching beauty now is changing the norm so much. I think we talk about like the Instagram face or like seeing the same type of appearance that if someone of a different appearance appears on like our For You page, we're like, oh my God, like this is so refreshing. And I feel like that's
Mm.
something to be really mindful of. Um, I think when you choose how to curate your feeds and your like the people that you follow, I think it's really important to have again a really good balance of people that make a certain type of content. And it's okay to make content with filters and like with procedures and like all that stuff. But I think it's
Yeah.
also really important to have content that is on the complete other end of the spectrum, to have people of different ages, to have people of different like life choices. If we get polarized, we are constantly going to feel like we are not enough because it'll be one way of living that we are chasing. And having like a diversity in what we view as aspirational will automatically mean that we don't have to use as much willpower to tell ourselves that we are not enough.
I love that. I think you just hit that spot on, which is like it's not about like being on like one polar end or one other end, right? Like
Yeah.
anyone's allowed to make their own digital choice. Like this isn't saying that like, you
Yeah.
can or can't do, beauty filters or procedures, but I love the point that you made about like diversifying your feed and, making these conscious choices. And when you do that, it'll get easier in terms of dopamine detoxes, kind of understanding the world around you more. Shamelessly plug yourself. Like, where can people connect with you?
Oh my
How
gosh.
can people get engaged with you?
If you're like looking for soft and cozy self improvement and some like mid-20s chaos, I'm on TikTok and Instagram. It's Wafa Gets Better. And we can chat there.
Wafa, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time. I feel like this was a brief but like really good, like meaty conversation
Yeah.
about like how we exist online. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much again, Wafa, for coming on, and I'll see you next time on Tech Unfiltered.